Your grandmother never bought vanilla extract. She never owned a bottle of expensive stock. She would have laughed at anyone paying £4 for a jar of roasted garlic paste, and yet everything she cooked tasted better than what comes out of your kitchen today. The food industry does not want you to know why, because if you learned what she knew, you would walk past half the shelves in Sainsbury's without stopping. Number 17 on this list replaces an ingredient that costs £6 a jar with something you are currently throwing in the bin. And number 3 is so effective that professional chefs still use it in Michelin kitchens but will never admit it on camera. These 25 tricks are not just clever, they are dangerous. Dangerous to every brand that has convinced you that cooking well means spending more. Before we start, subscribe, because after this list, your weekly shop will never look the same again. Number 25. Stale bread for thickening soups. Before cornflour packets and expensive roux mixes lined the shelves, your grandmother thickened every soup and stew with stale bread. She would tear yesterday's loaf into rough chunks, drop them into simmering broth, and stir until they dissolved into the liquid, creating a velvety body that no powder could match. The bread released its starch slowly, binding the soup without that gluey, artificial texture you get from packet thickeners. A loaf from the baker cost about 9p in the 1950s, and not a crumb went to waste. She would keep bread ends in a cotton bag hanging from the pantry hook specifically for this purpose. Onion soup, leek and potato, even her famous tomato soup got its richness from stale bread, not cream. Today we spend £2 on a tin of condensed soup that tastes like salted water. Your grandmother made something better from scraps she would have been embarrassed to throw away. One ingredient, zero cost, and a result that makes shop-bought thickeners completely pointless. Number 24. Tea-soaked fruit for cakes. Expensive brandy-soaked fruit for Christmas cake? Your grandmother would have called that showing off. She soaked her dried fruit in strong hot tea overnight. A proper brew, Yorkshire or PG tips, poured straight from the pot over sultanas, currants and mixed peel. By morning, the fruit was plump, juicy and deeply flavoured without a drop of alcohol. The tannins in the tea replicated that slight bitterness that brandy gives, while the warmth opened up the dried fruit and allowed it to absorb twice its weight in liquid. Her fruitcakes stayed moist for weeks. Some women added a squeeze of lemon or a spoonful of marmalade to the tea for extra depth. A box of loose-leaf tea cost about 1 and 6 in 1958, and she was using what was already in the pot. Meanwhile, a bottle of cooking brandy cost more than a day's housekeeping. The Women's Institute circulated this trick through handwritten recipe cards. Today we pay £8 for a bag of pre-soaked luxury fruit from Waitrose. Your nan achieved the same result with a teapot and patience. Number 23. Bacon fat for everything. Before olive oil became the darling of every television cook, your grandmother saved every drop of bacon fat in a ceramic bowl beside the cooker. She fried eggs in it. She roasted potatoes in it. She used it as the base for soups, pies, and even a quick roux for cheese sauce. That fat carried an intense, smoky, salty flavour that no bottle of oil could deliver. A pound of back bacon cost about 2 shillings in 1953, and the fat it rendered was considered part of the value, not waste. She would strain it through muslin and keep it covered on the cold shelf of the larder. Nutritionists in the 1980s demonized all animal fats, and we replaced them with tasteless vegetable oils and sprays that cost £3 a tin. Recent research published in The Lancet has challenged those old assumptions. But your grandmother did not need a study. She knew bacon fat made everything taste better because she had been proving it every morning since 1946. Number 22. Potato water for bread. When your grandmother baked bread, she never reached for expensive milk or fancy enriched flours. She saved the water from boiling potatoes and used it as the liquid in her dough. Potato water is full of starch, which feeds the yeast and creates a softer, more tender crumb than plain water ever could. The loaf came out taller, stayed fresh for days longer, and had a subtle sweetness that made it perfect for toast. She would keep a jug of potato water on the side after making the evening meal, ready for the next morning's baking. A sack of potatoes cost about 4 shillings in 1955 and served double duty. Professional bakers call this a potato sponge technique and charge a premium for the loaves. Your grandmother called it common sense. Number 21. Mustard powder in cheese dishes. That tin of Coleman's mustard powder, yellow as a daffodil, sitting at the back of the cupboard, was your grandmother's secret to making cheap cheese taste expensive. Half a teaspoon stirred into Welsh rarebit, cauliflower cheese, or a cheese sauce transformed mild cheddar into something that tasted sharp and complex. The mustard amplified the savory notes without making anything taste of mustard at all. She never bought mature or vintage cheddar at 3 times the price. Mild cheddar at about 10 pence a quarter pound and a pinch of Coleman's did the job better. The volatile compounds in mustard powder, called isothiocyanates, stimulate the same taste receptors as aged cheese. Your grandmother did not know the science. She just knew it worked. A tin of Coleman's cost about 8 pence and lasted the best part of a year. Modern recipes insist on expensive Gruyere or aged Comté for cheese sauces. Your nan would have raised an eyebrow and reached for the yellow tin instead. Number 20. Onion skins for golden gravy. Your grandmother never bought gravy browning. She never needed to. When she peeled onions for the Sunday roast, she saved the papery brown skins and tossed them into the roasting tin alongside the meat. As they cooked, those skins released a deep golden color and a subtle sweetness that turned thin pan juices into rich, dark gravy. No artificial caramel coloring, no Bisto granules, just onion skins that were heading for the bin anyway. She would fish them out before making the gravy, leaving behind nothing but color and flavor. Some women tied the skins in muslin for easy removal. Others dropped them straight into stock pots for the same effect. A bag of onions cost about 6 pence in 1956. The skins were free. Today we pay nearly £2 for a tub of gravy granules packed with maltodextrin and coloring. Your grandmother got a better result from rubbish. Number 19. Bread and butter under pie lids. When your grandmother made a meat pie, she did not waste money on puff pastry. She buttered slices of bread, laid them butter side down over the filling, and baked until golden and crisp. The result was a crunchy, buttery lid that soaked up the gravy from below while staying firm on top. A whole loaf and a pat of butter cost less than a single sheet of just roll. This trick appeared in wartime cookbooks from the Ministry of Food, designed for families who could not get pastry flour. But women kept using it long after rationing ended because it was faster, cheaper, and their families preferred it. The bread absorbed flavors the way pastry never could, turning every bite into something that tasted of the pie itself. Children fought over the corners where the bread had gone almost biscuit hard against the dish. We spend £3 on frozen pastry now and act like pie making is complicated. Your grandmother made it with yesterday's loaf and a knife. Number 18. Vinegar instead of wine in cooking. Your grandmother never opened a bottle of wine for cooking. She used malt vinegar, the same bottle that sat on the table for chips. A splash in the pan after browning meat deglazed it perfectly, lifting every caramelized bit from the bottom. A tablespoon in a stew cut through richness and balanced fatty flavors the same way wine does. The acid in vinegar performs the exact same chemical function as wine, breaking down proteins and brightening sauces. She would add it early so the harshness cooked off, leaving only depth and complexity behind. A bottle of Sarson's cost about 6 pence and lasted months. A bottle of cooking wine, even the cheapest, cost 2 shillings or more. Some women used a dash of vinegar in cake batters too, where it reacted with bicarbonate of soda for a lighter rise. Television chefs pour expensive burgundy into casseroles on camera, but behind the scenes, many restaurant kitchens keep cheap vinegar for exactly this purpose. Your grandmother never pretended, she just cooked well. Number 17. Vegetable peelings for stock. First pattern break. This one should make you angry. Every week you throw away the ingredients for restaurant quality stock. Your grandmother kept a pot on the back of the Aga or the lowest ring of the gas hob, and into it went every scrap. Carrot tops and peelings, onion ends, celery leaves, parsley stalks, mushroom trimmings, the outer leaves of leeks. She would simmer them for a few hours, strain the liquid through muslin, and store it in jars. That golden stock went into everything: risotto, soup, gravy, sauces, and it cost absolutely nothing. Today, a litre of fresh stock from Waitrose costs £3.50. A single stock cube, mostly salt and flavouring, costs 40 pence. Your grandmother made something superior from peelings you currently scrape into the food waste bin. The depth of flavor from a proper vegetable stock cannot be replicated by a cube or a gel pot. Chefs know this. That is why every professional kitchen keeps a stock pot running. Your nan ran hers on scraps, and she never once paid for the privilege. Number 16. Cold tea for marinating meat. Your grandmother never threw cold tea down the sink. She used it as a marinade for cheap beef. The tannins broke down tough fibers the same way red wine does, softening the meat and adding depth. She also used cold tea to water houseplants, which thrived on the tannic acid, and to wipe down wooden surfaces for a gentle polish. A pot of tea cost nearly nothing. A bottle of red wine for marinating cost considerably more. That quiet refusal to waste anything, even the dregs of a teapot, is why her household ran on half the budget yours does. Number 15. Breadcrumbs instead of flour coatings. Your grandmother never bought seasoned coating mixes or expensive panko breadcrumbs from the Japanese food aisle. She dried stale bread in the low oven, crushed it with a rolling pin, and stored the crumbs in a biscuit tin. Those homemade breadcrumbs coated fish, topped gratins, bound meatballs, and created the crunchiest fish cakes you have ever tasted. She seasoned them herself with dried herbs and a pinch of salt. A bag of panko breadcrumbs costs nearly £2. Your grandmother produced a better product from bread that was too hard to eat. The texture of oven-dried breadcrumbs, slightly irregular, gives a more interesting crunch than the uniform commercial versions ever can. Number 14. Jam jar sauce. When the jam jar was nearly empty, your grandmother did not wash it out. She poured warm water or a splash of vinegar into the jar, screwed the lid back on, shook it hard, and used that sweetened liquid as a glaze for ham, a base for salad dressing, or a quick sauce for puddings. Every last scrape of marmalade, strawberry jam, or lemon curd got used. Nothing clung to the glass long enough to see the bin. This trick saved pennies every week, but over a year, it added up. A jar of good jam cost about 1 3 in 1955. Wasting even a tablespoon felt criminal. Today, we throw away jars with a full centimetre of product still clinging to the sides and buy fresh bottles of glaze for £4. Your grandmother would be horrified. Number 13. Porridge oats as a meat stretcher. Second pattern break. When mince was expensive and mouths were many, your grandmother added a handful of porridge oats to the mixture. Meatloaf, rissoles, stuffing for peppers, shepherd's pie filling. The oats absorbed the meat juices, swelling to add bulk while keeping everything moist. 1 pound of mince could feed 4. With oats, it fed 6. A bag of Scott's porridge oats cost about 8 pence and lasted weeks. The oats also gave a better texture than breadcrumbs, holding together without becoming dense or heavy. Some women toasted the oats in a dry pan first for a nuttier flavour. Scottish grandmothers in particular used this trick for haggis-style dishes and meatballs, creating something that tasted richer than it had any right to. Modern butchers charge a premium for lean mince, but your grandmother knew that a handful of oats in cheaper, fattier mince gave a better result at half the price. The fat rendered into the oats, and the oats held the moisture. Simple engineering, brilliant results. Number 12. Evaporated milk for cream. Your grandmother never bought double cream at £2 a carton. She kept tins of evaporated milk in the cupboard, 9 pence each, and used them for everything. Poured cold over tinned fruit for pudding. Whisked into coffee, stirred into mashed potatoes for a richer consistency. Drizzled over porridge on cold mornings. When she wanted whipped cream, she chilled the tin overnight, then whipped the contents until thick and fluffy. The result held its shape for hours and tasted of real dairy, not the chemical sweetness of squirty cream. Evaporated milk was already concentrated, so it delivered a creamier texture than regular milk in every application. Scones, fudge, caramel, ice cream, all of them worked better with evaporated milk. A tin lasted months in the cupboard until needed. Fresh cream spoiled in 2 days. The economics were obvious. But food companies needed you to forget that a 9-penny tin could do the work of a £2 carton. So they wrapped cream in aspirational packaging and placed it at eye level. Your grandmother placed evaporated milk in the pantry and never looked back. Number 11. Parsley stalks, not leaves, for flavour. Every recipe says chop the parsley leaves and throw away the stalks. Your grandmother did the opposite. She knew that the stalks held more concentrated flavor than the delicate leaves. She would tie parsley stalks into a bouquet garni with bay leaf and thyme, drop the bundle into stocks, stews and casseroles, then fish it out before serving. The leaves she saved for garnish, if she used them at all. A bunch of parsley cost about 3p, and she used every part of it. Today, we buy packets of fresh herbs for £1.50, strip off a few leaves and bin the rest. Your grandmother's bouquet garni extracted more flavor from a single bunch than most modern cooks get from 3. Number 10. Brown sugar and vinegar as a glaze. Your grandmother never bought expensive marinades or glazes in bottles. She made her own by melting a few spoonfuls of dark brown sugar with a splash of malt vinegar in a small pan. That simple mixture, brushed over a ham joint or pork chops in the last 20 minutes of roasting, created a glossy, caramelized crust that tasted of toffee and smoke. The vinegar cut through the sweetness, preventing it from being cloying, while the sugar caramelized under the heat. Total cost, about 2p. A bottle of shop-bought glaze costs £3 and contains sugar, vinegar, and a dozen additives you cannot pronounce. Your grandmother's 2-ingredient version was faster, cheaper, and better. She applied it with a pastry brush, and the result rivaled anything you can buy in a bottle. That level of resourcefulness is why her roast dinners tasted the way they did. Number 9. A bay leaf in the rice. Third pattern break. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but your grandmother dropped a single dried bay leaf into the water when she boiled rice. That one leaf transformed plain white rice from a bland side dish into something fragrant and slightly sweet, with an aroma that made the whole kitchen smell like a proper dinner was being made. A packet of bay leaves cost about 6p from the greengrocer and lasted years. She used them in everything: rice, lentils, bechamel sauce, poached fish. 1 leaf per pot, fished out before serving. Today we buy flavoured rice packets, pillow mixes, and seasoned rice pouches at £2 a bag. Your grandmother achieved the same effect with a leaf that cost less than a fraction of a penny. The essential oils in bay, cineole and linalool release slowly in simmering water, perfuming whatever they touch without overpowering the dish. She did not know the chemistry. She knew the smell. Number 8. Leftover pickle juice as a condiment and tenderizer. When the pickled onions were finished, the jar of vinegar remained. Your grandmother never poured it away. She used that spiced, flavoured vinegar for salad dressings, splashed it into stews for acidity, and most cleverly, used it as a meat tenderizer. Tough cuts of beef or mutton were soaked in pickle juice for a few hours before cooking. The acid broke down the muscle fibres, and the spices, malt vinegar, cloves, allspice, and peppercorns, flavoured the meat at the same time. A jar of pickled onions cost about 9p. The leftover juice was a free condiment that lasted weeks. Today, people pay £4 for artisan vinaigrettes and £6 for specialty marinades. Your grandmother's pickle juice did both jobs and cost nothing. Number 7. Grating frozen butter into pastry. Your grandmother kept a block of butter in the freezer compartment specifically for pastry. When she needed to make scones, short crust, or crumble topping, she would grate the frozen butter directly into the flour using a box grater. The tiny frozen shreds distributed evenly through the mixture without melting, creating the flaky, layered texture that makes proper pastry. No food processor needed, no cutting in with knives, no rubbing in with warm hands that melted the butter too fast. The whole process took 2 minutes. A half-pound block of butter cost about 1 shilling and 8p in 1958. Today, we buy pre-made pastry because we have been told pastry is difficult. It is not difficult, it is frozen butter and a grater. Number 6. Milk bottle cream. Before homogenized milk arrived in the 1980s, your grandmother's milk bottles had a thick layer of cream sitting on top. She would skim that cream off with a spoon before anyone poured milk on their cornflakes. That cream went into sauces, over puddings, into her morning tea, and onto scones at the weekend. It was free. It came with the milk. The gold top bottles from the milkman had the richest cream, sometimes a full inch deep. She could collect enough cream from 3 days of deliveries to whip a bowl for Sunday trifle. Today, a small pot of clotted cream costs £3. Double cream costs £2. Your grandmother got it for nothing from the top of the milk. When dairies started homogenizing, forcing the fat evenly through the milk so it would not separate, they eliminated your grandmother's free cream supply. Then they sold it back to you in a separate carton at a premium. Number 5. Newspaper for ripening fruit. When your grandmother brought home hard pears, green tomatoes, or unripe bananas from the market, she wrapped them in newspaper and left them in the airing cupboard. Within 2 days, the fruit was perfectly ripe. The newspaper trapped ethylene gas, the natural ripening agent that fruit produces, concentrating it around the fruit and speeding the process. The warmth of the airing cupboard accelerated it further. Today, we buy pre-ripened avocados for £1 each and complain they go brown overnight. Your grandmother achieved the same result with yesterday's Daily Express and the cupboard where she kept the towels. Number 4. Egg whites for clarifying stock. 4th pattern break. When your grandmother wanted clear, jewel-bright consommé for Boxing Day, she did not buy special filters or clarifying agents. She whisked egg whites into the simmering stock. As the whites cooked, they formed a raft on the surface that trapped every particle of fat and sediment, leaving the liquid beneath perfectly transparent. She would strain it carefully through muslin, and the result was a golden broth so clear you could read a newspaper through it. This technique, called clarification, is taught in professional culinary schools as an advanced skill. Your grandmother learned it from her mother and treated it as ordinary kitchen knowledge. The egg whites cost nothing because she had already used the yolks for custard. Nothing wasted. 1 egg did 2 jobs. Number 3. A splash of coffee in chocolate cake. This is the trick professional bakers still use but pretend they do not. Your grandmother added a tablespoon of strong instant coffee to the batter of every chocolate cake she made. Not enough to taste of coffee. Just enough to amplify the chocolate flavor so dramatically that a cake made with cheap cocoa powder tasted like one made with expensive Belgian chocolate. The coffee compounds enhance the perception of chocolate on your tongue, deepening the bitterness and bringing out the richness without any additional cost. A jar of instant coffee cost about £1.09 in 1960. 1 tablespoon per cake meant that jar lasted years. Modern baking shows use high-end Valrhona cocoa at £6 a packet. Your grandmother used the cheapest cocoa she could find and a spoonful of Nescafé, and her cake was better. She never told anyone the secret. She just smiled when they asked why her chocolate cake was the best at the church fete. The trick works because roasted coffee and roasted cocoa share similar flavor compounds. Together, they taste more chocolatey than chocolate alone. Science confirmed this in 2009. Your grandmother confirmed it in 1952. Number 2. Soaking cheap meat in milk. Your grandmother could make the cheapest, toughest cut of meat taste tender and mild by soaking it in milk overnight. Liver lost its metallic bitterness, mutton lost its gamey edge. Even elderly boiling fowl became something edible after a night in a bowl of full-fat milk. The calcium in the milk activated enzymes in the meat that broke down tough protein fibers, while the lactic acid gently tenderized without turning anything mushy. The milk also drew out blood, resulting in a paler, milder-tasting piece of meat. She would discard the milk in the morning, pat the meat dry, and cook as normal. Nobody at the table knew why her liver and onions tasted so much better than everyone else's. A pint of milk cost about 4 pence. A cheap cut of liver cost a shilling. Together, they created something that tasted like an expensive piece of veal. Restaurants charge £15 for milk braised pork. Your grandmother invented the technique and called it Tuesday. Number 1. Cooking everything in the same oven at once. This was not a single trick, it was a philosophy. Your grandmother heated that oven once and filled every shelf. The roast on the middle rack, potatoes around the joint, a rice pudding on the bottom shelf, slow cooking in the gentle heat below, scones or a cake on the top shelf where the heat was fiercest, a bread and butter pudding using up stale bread beside the potatoes. She planned every meal around that single firing of the oven because gas cost money and wasting heat was as unforgivable as wasting food. By the time Sunday dinner was served, she had also produced pudding, a cake for Monday's tea, and sometimes bread for the week. Modern cooks heat the oven for 20 minutes to bake a single tray of oven chips. Your grandmother produced a 3-course meal and tomorrow's lunch from the same heat. She thought about meals the way an engineer thinks about systems. Every action served 2 purposes. Every bit of heat did double duty. That relentless efficiency is why she could feed a family of 6 on a budget that would not cover your weekly Pret order. Try one of these this week. Just one. The stale bread in your soup, the coffee in your chocolate cake, the milk soak on cheap liver. Then ask yourself why no one taught you this before. Your grandmother's kitchen did not have a food processor or a subscription to a recipe box service. What it had was knowledge that the food industry spent decades trying to bury. Because a woman who can cook like your grandmother does not need their products. And that is the most dangerous thing of all. Tell me in the comments which trick you are going to try first. And if your nan had a trick that did not make this list, share it, because this kind of knowledge deserves to live longer than 1 generation.